All right, just started off with one of my favorite bands nowadays is Ginger, Killer Band. This video is going to be kind of giving an idea what the main job of the sheriff that we take for granted because we do not know how much power the sheriff actually have. Alrighty, so we just assume the sheriff came from really the United States. But the sheriff actually started in 849. Alright, the year 849 in Denmark. Okay, and that's where the English originally came from, was Denmark. And they traveled down to what they call England now. And back then, Reeves, R-E-E-V-E-S, is what we call sheriffs nowadays, Reeves, okay? So we call sheriffs. Back then, shire was basically what we call counties now, in a lot of ways, okay? So, history there. And yeah, even way back then, women could be sheriffs. The main authority of the sheriff at that time, which was Reeves, they was right underneath the king. Okay? So, a few years later, let's go around the 1200. Alright? There was a king called King John. Alright? Now, a bunch of things has happened between here and there. Alright? People from Denmark left and went to what they call England now, and king died there, and they voted in their own king at 1214, I believe. 1214, I believe. They basically said, well, we're too far from Denmark, and we're just going to have a new king, which is, what was that king's name? Ethelred. Ethelred is how you really pronounce it. All right. And it was 1014 to 1016, around in that area, that time frame, okay? Anyway, between there and 1210, or 1215, they had a bunch of kings, Williams, and which was from Belgium. The reason why it came from Belgium is because it was family related, and basically started their own country then. That's another story. But Belgium is the one that came up with a lot of this. King Williams, basically. Ruthless king. And his two kids was just as evil. But when King Henry, I believe it was, a lot of things came into more of a protection of the people of England because, well, he's afraid to lose his head. People getting a little antsy and mad. So he did some basically plea deals with the people to keep his head, which comes into the effect of what they call a Magna Carta. Okay, so short term, King John was a spending king. In order to spend money, he had to get money. In order to get money is like a government now. He had to tax everybody to death. Taxing the property, taxing their money, taxing their foods, If they didn't have money, they had to give food. And this is about the era of what we know today as Robin Hood. Okay. So the people got mad about this, and they did a maracata on the king, in which what that entailed to do, long story short, was that the sheriff at that time was underneath the king. When they followed a maracata, it really it changed the powers from the king to the people. And around 12, 15, 12, 13, somewhere around here is when this basically came all about. After this was done, John didn't live very much longer after this. But they did in Maracata. And that's how today we got the sheriffs. Some of y'all already know that if you listen to my videos or Facebook or this, that, here, and there, what that did was protect the people from outside forces. It kind of helped level the playing field on kings having too much power and all that. Long term, it didn't really help them too much. Long term, it didn't really help us too much. But this is where basically the sheriffs came from. This is where they come up with the sheriff of Nottingham. All right. They took the sheriff basically from the king through process, and they called, some call Robin Hood a hero, some call him a thief. But the main story was, how did you steal something that wasn't yours? The king was stealing the money from the people. All he did is confiscated the people's property back. That's all he did. He confiscated the people's property back, which was their money or redress of the food they lost, turned into money. But that's what he did, okay? However you want to look at it, that's doesn't change the fact of the factual evidence is that he actually confiscated his people's money back. When he stole it, is that he confiscated back. If somebody steals my car, the sheriff is go to that person's house, get that car, and bring back to me. Okay? Exact same principle. Okay? And some of you guys already know I don't believe in the United States having this tax thing anyway. Government's not supposed to steal money. All right? This is what we fought against the Brits for, is have our inalienable rights. All right? That's the reason why in the Constitution it says the power is only delegated to foreign affairs, foreign commerce, all that. That's how they're supposed to make the money. It wasn't from us as foreign, making deals with the foreign countries, for the stuff to be shipped in and all that. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little history on the sheriff. So, which brings back today. The sheriff in the county is the most powerful agency, government person. Why? Because he works for us to protect us from tyranny from the king. Okay, short term. That's basically what it means. The president has no power without the sheriff's permission. FBI has no power unless they have the sheriff's permission. CIA, no power. Any government agency, period, has no power mayor has no power over the sheriff. Our governor, for me, is Texas. They have no power over my sheriff. Our sheriff is to protect us from government entity and of all enemy affairs. Okay? And it's this way until today. Whoops. Sorry about that. So when you start looking at your sheriff, you need to start looking at your sheriff as a protector for you against government. All right? I'm sure some of you guys heard on TV and news and all that the sheriff is not going to uphold the law that they passed and all that kind of stuff. He does not have to. If it is unconstitutional and if it's against your inalienable rights, and that's where he has to do, is protect your inalienable rights. You have no constitutional rights. The Constitution belongs to the government. It says, do not pass this, or you be trespassed. All right? Second Amendment. That's not our right. That's a break for the government. Okay? Our right is because we have an inalienable rights by our Creator, or however you want to look at your life and liberty. Okay? That's what the Bill of Rights is. The Bill of Rights is to remind us of our inalienable rights are. That's the Bill of Rights. And the government on the Constitution cannot cross that line into our inalienable rights section. Okay? Just the same as we hold that line to tell them, no, they cannot cross this. That's the reason why we are allowed to bear arms, is because it's an inalienable right to protect ourselves, our life, our property, our liberty. We don't have the Second Amendment rights. That's already been given us through the Bill of Rights by our Creator. However you want to look at the Creator. Okay? Just by being alive, being my own man, I have inalienable rights. And I have inalienable rights to protect myself through anything. They say I'm not allowed to bear arms while we're in a state of emergency. Wrong. That's when I have the most rights. If it goes nuts, I am allowed to protect myself. Okay? So the sheriff signed the oath to protect the Constitution. Okay? But in essence, what that's technically supposed to mean by the oath of office, very old oath of office, until they keep changing it. Thank you, Clinton, is one of them. It was the barrier. They're not allowed to cross that line into inalienable rights section. Private people. All right? The sheriff says, once you cross this line, you have no say over my people. So there are the last defense before we go into war with the government. Okay? So we got a bunch of things that we can do to redress our problems before getting that far. And our sheriff is the last defense. Okay? Once they break through that sheriff, then we lost it all. So start learning your sheriff's rightful place. It's the reason why New Mexico, when they signed the red flag law in, and the sheriff says he's not going to uphold it. The mayor says, well, not the mayor, the governor says, well, if you're not going to uphold our laws, then you need to resign. Because she cannot fire him. She can't do it. It's unconstitutional. Our constitutional sheriff is to protect us from her. Or him, or however you want to look at it. Alright? So make sure you really nitpick on who your sheriff is going to be. But I wanted to give you a kind of an idea of what was going on, where the powers came from and all that kind of stuff of history. Old school was called reis. That is sheriffs, what we call today. Magna Carta changed it from the king to the people. And that's the reason why we have sheriffs now. He no longer represents the kings or president. He represents the people, and it's been passed down to that. All right, so he's the most powerful thing in the county. All right, so FBI can't enter without permission. And as a matter of fact, the closest show I've seen, and I haven't seen very many shows, but what little I've seen, I really actually like the TV series of the Deputy. Like I said, I have not seen very many shows, but what couple of shows I did see, he pushed his authority and told him basically back down. Well, that's his authority. That he has that right. So I just wanted to kind of make this video just to kind of give you a little history of a sheriff and how important it is. Now, some of the states out there try to get rid of the authority, but the people need to stand up and say, you cannot do that. I kind of have a small argument in one in my town here. Like, well, the city runs this and the sheriffs run the county. Where's the city in? Well, it's in the county. Yeah, what county is this city in? Well, it's in, Callahan County. Okay, so he has authority over you. Well, no, not really. Yeah, he does. So I didn't put up with it over here where I live. I kind of told him plain out, he does have that authority. Behave yourself. Okay, another way of looking at this, and it's been a while since I looked this up and all that, so you may have to verify. Federalist 51. Okay? That is authorizing the Supreme Court that, not Supreme Court, but that's what Federalist 51 is kind of gives you a greater deal on the authority of the sheriffs. And by the way, this has been to the Supreme Court. And I believe it's MacPriest. I can spell it. I can't pronounce it. MacPriesds versus U.S. All right. Upheld the authority of the sheriff. So this has been through Supreme Courts. This is in the Federalist 51. This has been history over and over and over since basically Robin Hood, since they did the Magna Carta. If I'm pronouncing it right, I can read things and not pronounce it very well. So that's my downfall there. People, I just wanted to kind of give you a little history lesson on this sheriff thing. This is the reason why you're starting to hear these sheriffs kind of poke their heads up and say, hey, I'm not going to uphold it and all that. They have that authority to protect you. All right. Another thing that you guys may want to look at and get a copy of is Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. All right. That would be under the deal of basically martial law. Now, state of emergency, national emergency, all that, regardless what you guys say, it is actually martial law. Okay? So, I still have not found technically where martial law is even remotely allowed to be in our country. But basically, when it says is that they're allowed to do that on two conditions. One, there had to be a rebellion. Okay? Number two, it has to be an invasion. All right? Now, when they say invasion, we're not talking about what they're saying now. Invasion of the virus. No. All right? Remember this, y'all. Our founding fathers was no strangers to diseases and outplagues and all that. If they wanted to put it in the Constitution, they would specifically put it in there. And what does a couple of our founding fathers say? If it's not in there, then you go back into our natural rights. All right? That's what they told the government. If it's not in the Constitution, then you have to go by the people's natural rights. It don't mean you have this authority. So, like civil law was not in the Constitution. All right? Civil law does not supposed to exist in our country. All right? It goes against our natural rights. All civil law is 100% against natural rights. That's code enforcement. Okay? The whole civil law. All of it. There's not a single law that's civil that is not against the natural rights. So really understand the power that we have with our Bill of Rights. Okay? So, Bill of Rights for us, the Constitution for the government. They are not allowed to cross that line into our natural right zone. All right? I hope I explained this in fairly good terms. It does go into a little deeper and a little more studying, but I just want to kind of give you an idea of where our sheriffs got their authority, how it became about, and how it's supposed to be. So really start studying the power of your sheriff of your county. I mean, once we start getting a sheriff that actually knows our inalienable rights, then we're going to have an excellent sheriff. And if we don't have an excellent sheriff, fire him. Vote him out. Protest him. Most people don't know to this day that the sheriff still has authority to deputize people. Virginia, the first thing he should have done is deputize the whole county when they made it a red county law, or a sanctuary county. He shouldn't have made it a sanctuary county. He could call it that. But what he should have done is went in there and deputized every single good citizen. I'm not talking about criminals, all that. But, yeah. So learn the power that your sheriffs can come up to your house and deputize you and have you go chase down a bad guy. They still have that authority. That has not changed. And now if the states change that power, they actually had no authority, and we the people in that state need to get up and demand that power back to them. Like I said, he's the last defense before we go into civil war with the government agency. Okay? Reminder, get a copy of Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. That would explain the power, whether they can do martial law or anything. Alrighty. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Push like. And like I said, I do a little bit of everything. If I go into a right area, I'll cop watch. If I go in the right area, I'll film them. Sometimes I'm a little secretive, especially when I'm asking questions, because I don't want them. I want the truth of what they say and not cover their ass because they're afraid of the camera. If I decide to do a First Amendment audit, obviously that's going to be different. But when I want answers, it's going to be covered up where I can get direct answers and not be so nervous. Alright, so that's where some of these videos is the reason why, that you watch. This is Diesel for We the People. You take your inalienable rights back and quit using the Constitution that we do not have. Okay? I do not have a Second Amendment right. I have an inalienable right to bear arms. I don't have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. I don't have a First Amendment right to speak. I have an alienable right to speak. They have no right to cross that line. They have no rights to take your guns. Okay? All these things on this private side is inalienable rights. The Constitution belongs to the government, telling them they cannot cross it. That is that contract. Again, diesel for we the people. Enjoy the rest of this badass band.
Source of confusion, the reason of decay and disillusion, under burning ties, we found breathless paradise. No, we're not dead. No, you're not dead. Just enjoying cold night.
Hope you enjoyed it. Bye, y'all.